Hello guys, and welcome to another video of our React series. In this case, we're going to be studying more about React components and also the JSX syntax. Last time we studied a little bit the structure of a React project, where we saw that we need to define a root, which in simple terms is uh, telling React which part of our HTML we wanted to control. In this case, we are going to target the element with an ID of root, which is this div. That in simple terms is all the content inside our body. So in other words, is telling React to take control over our whole application. And then in this root, we are telling that we want to render this specific piece of code that, as we're going to see, is a component. And in here, we just simply have a function. I just deleted all the code that we had before and added just a simple div with hello world. So in here, we're going to basically have rendered whatever is rendered in here. So at this point of time, if we run our application, if we do npm run start, yep, I think that I was already running it in another port, but we're going to get hello world because that's the only HTML that we are telling our application to display right now. So far nothing new, but I want to dive deeper into components in this lecture. And now you may ask yourself what a component is. So we're going to study the definition in a more in the bigger picture, because a component is like the basic unit in React. Everything is built upon components. That's like the main principle that you need to keep in mind when working with React. So everything is a component. For example, this app is a component, and inside this app I can also have other components, and inside those components I can have other components. So the idea is to build the whole layout around components, which in simple terms are reusable pieces of code in which you encapsulate data, appearance, behavior that you might identify that can be repeated across your application. So for example, if you have a component for displaying a book, and you have, for example, a website in which you are displaying those books to the clients so they can browse to buy those books. So like the appearance of every single item or every single book is going to be similar, or I'm going to have a picture, a title, a description, a price. So that might be a good candidate for being a component, because instead of writing the same code 100 times for all the books that we have, we just write the code once and reuse it whenever we need it. So we're going to build upon this concept in the following lectures. But for now, I just want you to understand that a component is something that is going to encapsulate some logic, some code that then you can invoke in other places of your application to take advantage of just having that code written once, improving maintenance, improving more clean code, improving readability. When something maybe goes wrong, it's easier to just have to look into one place or making modifications in just one place rather than identifying where this code is repeated across your application. So there are a lot of advantages that you're going to be seeing when we work with this library and components in a specific. So we're going to see this example of app, as this is the standard in which the main component is going to be called app, and inside of here then everything else is going to be rendered. But for now, what we want to understand is that a component is basically a function that is going to start with a capital letter and that is going to return this special syntax. This syntax is called JSX. So it is JSX, which includes JavaScript, HTML, and CSS in just one single place. So as we saw in our past lecture of comparing vanilla JavaScript with React, we saw that we had one file for the JavaScript code, we had one file for the HTML. With the JavaScript, we targeted specific parts of the HTML to make changes, to add event listeners, and in case we wanted to add styling, that was also needed in a separate file. But as applications became getting bigger and more complex, then these three elements became more and more tightly coupled. So in case one changed, then we might also make changes in other places as well. So it is easier to have these three variables that might introduce changes in one simple place. So as we can see, in this specific example, we are just rendering HTML. But with this syntax, we can, so to say, enter JavaScript mode. So if we do curly braces, then we can include expressions in here. An expression is basically anything that can evaluate to a value. So for example, 10 plus 5, it's going to evaluate to 15. And this is JavaScript, pure JavaScript. And in here, we have our plain HTML. We have a piece of JavaScript. And if we want, we can also include inline styling by accessing this style attribute and doing double curly braces. And for example, target the background color and set it to red, for example. So let's just see what this code is displaying, and then I will go deeper into this. All right, so now to really see the power of components, I have just created a simple markup. We're going to have inside our app a container that is going to be using this class name of app. If we go to the styling, this one is just global styles for resetting the padding, the margin, setting the box size into border box so that the width is going to take into account paddings and borders. So this is easier because sometimes if we do not do this, we might get really weird behaviors. Also setting the font size to this percent, that is going to help for responsiveness, and also just setting a default for the font size. It's default CSS styling. Then if we go to our app, going to place it in the top. We're just saying that we want to be using it as a flex container. The direction is going to be column, and we want to target the whole viewport height. So that's why we are going to see that it is going to be using the whole view. Then we're going to have a header that is going to be simply some background color, padding, and using this color for the text. Pretty simple. This is what we see right here. And then we're going to have, as we can see in here, the content. The content is going to be flex 1, so that it is going to target the other part of my layout. Then we're going to be using this background color, some padding, and we're going to be using display grid so that we can display different cards, as we're going to be seeing soon. And then the card is simply some basic styling for having a card with some shadow, padding, The header is going to be this part of right here with a nice line to divide the header from the content. And this is just some random generated text just to fill the remaining space, and then a button for purchase. So pretty simple. And in here we have the header, we have the content, we have the cart. That, as we can see, what happens if, for example, in our application we want to have multiple cards. So let's say that in a simple application we will come and take this div and just copy and paste it a couple of times, and we have 3 different cards, right? I'm gonna move my camera a little bit. We have 3 different cards. So far so good, but we can do something way better. What we can do is that I'm going to define inside of this another function that is going to be maybe book card. That is going to be a function, and this book card is going to return this whole markup, the markup for my card. So we say return, and we return this. So in here we can come and let's see where it is. I think it's this one, this whole div, this other one as well. And we can remove this. Right now we are going to have nothing because we have removed the cards. But what we can do is inside of our content where we used to have the code for the card, we can do just, book card, and then do book card. And as you can see, this is going to basically say in here I am wanting to display or render a component. Which is this component? It's this one, which in simple terms is another function, as we said before, that is going to return some JSX, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. In this case, we just have HTML and the references to the classes. But it is going to come and instead of this, it is going to output whatever the return of this function or component is. So we can do this multiple times. And for each time, it is going to render my specific code. So as we are seeing, instead of copying and pasting the code 3 times, we are just invoking the corresponding component, and whatever is inside of here, it's what the application is going to output. So we just have in one central place the code that we want to be rendered. If we want to make changes, we just have to come in here and make the changes in here, not in the 3 different codes. Also, it is way cleaner. As you can see, it is just saying, I don't care what it's inside of here. I'm just, what I just know is that I want to render whatever book card is. And then book card is in charge of rendering the specific card for every single book. So this is really nice, as you can see. But you might be wondering, right now it's really cool and everything, but we are repeating the code in every single instance of our card. That's completely true. And before going to the solution, which in this scenario is something called props, I want to finish the lecture right here, because I just wanted to emphasize on using components, what a component is, how to create one, what is JSX, and how the two terms relate to each other, because a component is going to return JSX syntax. So as we can see, we define a component by using a function in capital letter, beginning with the capital letter. Then in here, we are expected to return some piece of code. The piece of code is JSX. So it is a special syntax that allows us to write not only HTML, but also JavaScript and also CSS styling. And we can have nested components. So in my main component of app, I can have another or another call or invocation of another component that in this case I want to render 3 times this book card. At this point of time, we saw that it is just some static content. Every time that we call book card, it is going to return to me the specific content of Harry Potter. But what if we have, for example, a list in this case of 3 books, but the 3 books are different? I'm not going to create, for example, book card, Harry Potter, then book card, Hail Mary, for example, and book card, Lord of the Rings, right? Because at the end of the day, this will be the same as just copying and pasting the code, because I'm going to have this book card with a specific code for Harry Potter. Then I'm going to copy and paste a function to do the one for Hail Mary, and then copy and paste it for Lord of the Rings. So what we want to have is just one single component called book card, and somehow being able to use a specific information of the corresponding book, so that this component maybe can receive the information somehow, then display it accordingly, so that we do not have just hard-coded values, but dynamic values based on what the user is sending in each specific case. And we are going to be seeing how that is possible in the next lecture, where we're going to be exploring about props. But for now, I want you to just feel comfortable with components, write some components. If you also want to experiment more with CSS and HTML, write your own codes, try to create your own cards. For example, make something for displaying an inventory of products. And when you feel comfortable with using components, writing the syntax, getting the feel of what or how JSX looks like, then we're going to be continuing studying how making these components more flexible by receiving the so-called props. So once again, thank you so much for sticking with me in this lecture. I hope that you find this useful, and I see you in the next one. Bye bye.